Hi, this is Mr. Heineman from Evergreen High School, and this is for my Microsoft Imagine Academy classes. This is Excel 2013 Core, Lesson 6. In this first exercise, we're going to create a chart using the data we see here. So, we're going to start by creating a 3D column chart, and you always want to select your data first before you start to create the chart. In this case, we want the planned expense and actual expense columns, but we also want to select the expense category because that will give us the labels for each of our bars or columns in our chart. So I'm going to click Insert. Once I've selected my data, go to Column. We're going to go just right here to the 3D clustered column chart and click on that. And we have 3D clustered columns. We can resize this if we want to. Pull it taller, wider. We're going to change the chart title just by clicking on it and then selecting the title. And this is going to be planned versus actual 2013. Okay. We already have a legend down here that tells you what each bar color is, what it represents. At this point, it'll actually be easier to see if we go ahead and make it its own worksheet. So I'm going to right click, go to Move Chart, and we're going to move it to a new sheet called Planned versus Actual Chart. Now I click OK, and it's now its own worksheet. It's been moved out of the budget worksheet into its own worksheet. A little bit easier to see, so we can go ahead and save this and get ready for the next exercise. So I'll pick up where we left off in the last exercise, where we're going to go back to the budget sheet here, and we're going to do a pie chart of the variance here. But because we also want these expense categories still, I'm going to press and hold the Control key and then select that column as well. That'll give us the labels that we want for our chart. And again, I'm going to go to Insert, and this time I'm going to click here on Pie Charts, and we're just going to insert a 2D pie chart. And looking at it, not a real meaningful way. It assumes that everything's going to add up to 100%. So let's try a different type of chart, which you can always do if you ever click on a chart and you think, well, it doesn't look quite how I want it. We can go up here to Change Chart Type, and then it'll give us some options for changing. Let's see what a line chart looks like. That looks a little bit better, where I can actually see values that go into the negative as well as the positive, but it's still not quite what I'm looking for. Line charts are good when you want to show change over time. This is really not change over time. This is different categories. So let's go ahead and change it again. This time we're going to go to a bar chart, and we're just going to start with just a basic bar chart with the labels on the actual chart area. So when I click OK, but you'll notice that it doesn't include all of our chart categories, all of our expense categories. And you notice they're also flipped. That just kind of is how it works. But if I stretch this taller, that gives us all of our expense categories on the chart. And I can go a little bit wider as well to really see what this chart looks like. So now that I see all the vertical axis labels and I have my chart, I'm good to go. I can go ahead and save this and get ready for the next exercise. In this exercise, we're in a new workbook called the City Real Estate Workbook, and we are going to create a chart from this data. So I'm going to select the data first, click Insert, then click 2D column chart in this case. You could do a 3D if you want. And then we're going to make some changes. We're going to add a title, call this House Statistics 2014. to add a border around the legend, I'm going to right click on the legend and click Format Legend. And the Format pane pops up. I'm going to click on Fill and Border. I'm going to select a solid border, black as a theme color, and that gives me a border around the legend. I can also change colors of the chart as I want. The easiest way is to simply change the color scheme up here. I'm going to change it to a monochromatic scheme. You can also do that. You can also select the data series itself and change the fill on your own. So you could change it to your own colors if you choose. So if you didn't like the colors but you wanted to do some other choices just to make them stand out, or however you wanted to organize it, you can do that as well. You can also do different styles if you want, things like that. If you don't like anything, you can always undo. And then we'll go ahead and we'll make this a separate sheet. So we right click, move chart, and we can leave it as chart 1. We can also call it house statistics chart, so that we know it's what it is. And we've got that. Close the format pane, and then we're pretty much done. We can go ahead and save and be done with this workbook. So in this last online exercise, we're going to create another chart, of course. We're in a new workbook called the Stock Prices Workbook, and in this case, this data is set up nicely for a line chart because it's got dates and a stock price over time. That's what a line chart is really good for, is showing change over time. So I'm going to create a line chart. With line charts, you can create a single line chart, a 2D line chart. If you want to do a 3D line chart, you may do that, but it's going to ask you to change the rotation so it appears like a 2D chart. But you can see it with more definition. I'm just going to choose a 2D chart. It's a little bit easier to read. And so we're going to go ahead and change this title to Tolano Adventures stock price. And I'm just adding that on in the front of that, because since it already said stock price, I just added on the Tolano Adventures just by clicking in that title. Click out of it. Might help to see a little more clearly. We don't have all of the exact dates here. We just have some milestone dates, so it's a little bit easier to see. When I make it a little bit bigger, we can see more of the dates and see a clear pattern of what's going on with this stock. So after that, now that I can see it, we'll save and move on. So for this first creative application, we're back in the Green Souls Operating Budget workbook with the variance chart. And what we're going to do first is we're going to move this chart to its own sheet called variance. And then we're going to make some changes to this chart. First of all, get rid of the legend, click on it, click delete. Secondly, these labels are right in the middle of the data, so I'm going to get them out of there. So we're going to right click on them, click Format Axis. Under Axis Options, we're going to click Labels, and we're going to move them to Low, which will move them away from the actual axis itself, which is right in the middle, and put them on the side. So we still can tell which bar goes with which item, but now it's not, the labels aren't in the middle of the data. And now we'd like to emphasize the negative amounts in this data. So these amounts. So with the format pane still up, I'm going to click on the data series. We're going to click on fill and select a solid fill. I'm going to leave this color as is, but I'm going to click and select the invert if negative checkbox so I can change the fill color and the inverted fill color. The inverted fill color we're going to just change to a straight up red. So now the negative amounts appear in red, and the positive ones now appear in this blue. Finally, I'm going to click the chart area or the plot area itself. We're going to do a gradient fill there. We can do just a preset gradient. Those are usually the easiest. Or if you wanted to, I guess you could decide on your own gradients here and just kind of select where the gradient stops are. It's usually easiest to just pick one that's a preset, and then if you want to do some more options, however you feel about that, whatever you want to do with that. So I'm going to pick one, stick with it, maybe the purple, and we'll go ahead and save this and be ready for the next one. So in this creative application, we're going to add some additional things to this to enhance its look. So first thing we're going to do is add some pictures. So in each of these cells here, we're going to add a picture. To this first one, we're going to add a train. So we're going to actually go to Insert, Illustrations, and Pictures. And then you navigate to the microsite student files, and in there is each of the pictures. So we're going to click on Train, click Insert, and you notice it's slightly bigger than the cell. So I'm going to position it kind of where I want it, and then we'll resize it just using the sizing handles there. And then I can put it kind of centered in there, and it's ready to go, and I can add the next one in here. The second one will be the samurai. I can also double click just to add things. So again, resize and move, place it approximately center, add the cycling one, same sort of thing, needs to be resized considerably so it'll fit inside there. And then we'll add one more. Insert the camel. Okay. And the camel here, you'll notice, has that white background. And we'd rather not have the white background in there. So we could actually remove the background by going up here in the Picture Tools Format tab and clicking Remove Background. And then it gives us a little interior background frame that we're going to move. And I'm actually going to go ahead and move this out to the edges of the picture. And what's nice is that it can't go beyond the edges of the picture, so if you just click and drag to the edges, it'll go all the way to the edge. Then when I'm done, I click Keep Changes, and it's now got no background. We'll make some other adjustments here. Another way to make easy corrections, I could right click and click Format Picture, and I get the Format Picture pane up here, but there's still some of these things. For instance, under corrections, I can make individual corrections, brightness and contrast. We can stick with the 0% brightness and the +40 contrast, which is right here. So if I click it, that's automatic. I could also make those individual changes in here if I click on Picture Corrections under the Format Picture, and I can make those individual corrections if I wanted to. So now we're going to add a star over here to kind of highlight something. So we're going to go to Insert, Illustrations. This time we're going to add shapes, and I'm going to choose this star right here, also known as an explosion. And we're going to go ahead and stretch this between these ones here. That's about good. We're going to go ahead and remove the shape out, or the shape fill. So if I just click on this or click the drop down and select no fill, Again, I can also do that from here, from the shape, the fill in lines, and click no fill. Uh, we're also going to add a text box, which is right here. And this text box is going to include the phrase, our first tour to Morocco. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and select the text and make the text 16. And then we can go ahead and resize this a little bit to make sure we only see 2 lines of text. Let's go ahead and get rid of the fill. And then it would also be nice to orient this like the, I guess we should center this text. That might look better. There we go. And then we're going to orient this so it kind of works along with this star. So we could rotate it. I could hand rotate it using this handle. I can also go up here to the options in here, and under rotation I'm going to rotate clockwise, which for Excel means negative degrees. So I'm going to go about 20 degrees, and then we'll move it so it's inside of the star, and then we'll go ahead and group these together. So once with the text box selected, I'm going to press and hold Control and select the star, and then under the drawing tools format context menu, I'm going to go ahead and click group objects and select group, and now they're considered one item. Almost forgot, I need to get rid of the outline there. So let's go to the line here, get rid of the outline as well. There we go, that looks better. So now when I move, if I choose to move these, they will move together. They'll be treated like one object until I decide I want to ungroup them, if I want to ever ungroup them. So we're done. We click save. Everything looks better than it did, and we're ready for the next one. So in this creative application, we're going to make a pie chart and format it for a nicer appearance. So I'm going to select all of these labels across the top, and we're just going to use the totals for our pie chart. So I press and hold Control to select both ranges of cells, and when I click Insert and Pie Chart, we notice we'll go ahead and we have our pie chart. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just to be able to see it. So we want to go ahead and explode some pieces. What that means is in pie charts, that's when we have pieces of the pies explode out and show like highlight those. So we're going to select, I'm going to end up exploding, we want orange, apple, and then pineapple. Pineapple is actually this one right here, I believe. Or no, I guess it's this one, the green one. And so we want to explode those out. So we're going to go ahead and format this data point here. And we, of course, have some options. We want to explode it out a little bit. And maybe we choose to explode it out just enough to see it. Okay, same thing with apple. We want to explode it out. We can explode it way out, or we can explode it just a little bit out. We can also select it, so maybe we stick with like 40% and kind of keep that. Okay, and then with pineapple, we can do the same thing here. Except it's for some reason not working. So now that I've got it out, we can explode that. And that way we can see those three. We can always adjust those. Maybe I decide that's a little too far. Cut it down to 20% so that it's not so far out. But we can definitely see we want to see those separately. Now this is the real creative part where we're going to actually try and change the colors of the pie slices to represent the colors of the juices here. So I hope you know your juices. I'm going to go through and do my best to approximate these colors. So we're going to go ahead and click on fill. We're going to select a solid fill, and in this one, orange juice, I think of like an orange color, just a basic orange works for me. Apple juice is a little bit lighter in that color. If I don't see anything I like, maybe something like this. It's still not quite what I'm looking for, I think. Something maybe like that, or I can always click more colors and choose whatever color I think might want. This one kind of looks more like apple juice to me. Grapefruit juice is kind of a pinkish, can be like a pink, similar to the apple juice, but a little bit darker. Cranberry juice is, of course, a really nice dark red. It's an easy one to choose. Guava is another one that's a pinkish, maybe we go more of a bright pink on that one. That looks a little more like the juice. Pineapple juice, I'm going to go straight up yellow, maybe a little darker yellow though. Go back here and maybe we'll choose, maybe we just go with a little bit lighter yellow actually rather than that. Peach is, well, it's peach. Kind of a orangish yellow, something along those lines. And then finally grape, I'm going to do a nice deep dark purple. And if I don't see a dark purple, here we go. That looks like a nice dark purple. So once I have that done, I can do some things like we can maybe move the title over since I exploded it. We could give it the title total sales by juice so that we know it's kind of what we're looking at. We can also move that out of the way. If we wanted to, we could also do some other legend options, maybe move it from the bottom to the left. Might be easier to see that way. Make this maybe a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, so we can see it more clearly. There's always the option of making it its own worksheet. Makes it easier to see. Whatever you choose to do, that's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and save it, and we can move forward. So in this creative application, we're going to actually borrow some stuff that we learned earlier about conditional statements and conditional logic in worksheets, but then also add on some graphics to emphasize some things. So in this worksheet, each person who gets a who has a sales over $100,000 is going to get a bonus of a 1.5% of all their sales. And then if they have sales above 150,000, then they get a 5% bonus of just the sales over 150,000. So we're going to use actually two conditional statements here. So I'm going to hit equals, type if, and then we're going to start. So we're going to test first to see, is this over 100,000? And if it is, then the value that's going to go in here is that total times 1.5%, which is 0.015 in a decimal. If not, we're not going to actually put anything, so I'm going to leave that blank and just close my parentheses there. And that'll give me the bonus of the 1.5% for over 100,000. I need to add on a bonus if they get over 150,000, but that bonus only applies to the amount over 150,000. So I'm going to take this, subtract 150,000 from it, and then multiply that by 5%, which is 0.05. And then like the other one, if it's false, I'm not going to have anything. And so I just close the parentheses. And now when I hit enter, for people who don't get the bonus, it's just going to have that little mark showing that they didn't get the bonus. And then click on that and it shows what the total is for each person, what the total bonus is. Then I can extend this sum function over to here to see the total amount earned. Uh, and so that's pretty good that we earned this much. We earned over $7,000 in bonuses this year. But we should go ahead and commend everybody. So we're going to insert a shape. Maybe we'll do something like this. If we want to, we could do something similar. We could always adjust kind of how this looks. Maybe make it a little narrower. We can also just double click on this to add and start typing text. And we can say like, way to go team. And we can adjust the text here so we don't have to add a text box. We can use this and we can do things like adjust the text box. We can make it bigger. Might change the colors here. I think this looks a little bit better. But we can express our gratitude to the whole team. And then we should also call out this one person who earned the 5% bonus, which we can do with just a simple box here. And maybe this one will make like green. And again, I'll type in this one. And we'll say extra good job here. Maybe resize that a little bit. And then just to show them what we're meaning, we're going to put a little line there to show that's who we're talking about. Maybe we'll make that closer to this dark green line. Does that look better? No. I can always change the shape outline myself to that darker green. So just to point out who did a real good job. So now we're done with this, save, and ready to finish up. So in this last creative application, we're going to create a sheet that shows a process for how payroll works. And this is a linear process from beginning to end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a smart art illustration. So I click insert, click illustrations, and we're going to click on smart art, and we're going to click a process. And knowing this has 7 steps in the process, I think it would be best if we did something like this, where we go to the end of a line and then it goes down to the next line and then snakes back and forth as we need. Because we want to make sure that the people can understand what they're looking at. So when I click OK, I'm given 5 to begin with, and I'm going to move this up higher and maybe widen it a bit so that we have plenty of space to work with here. What's nice is when I start doing smart art, I start typing in what I want, and things resize accordingly. So all of the text resizes, so it's all the same size. And then if it happens that I have to resize again, it'll all resize, including text that's already been entered. So here's my third one. So now that I need to add more shapes, I just click Add Shape, and there's a new shape for me. Um, and then I need one more shape, and I can also resize down to make it a little bit bigger. That way it's a little bit easier to see. I'm going to go ahead and merge and center these cells and create a title. Bold it, call it Payroll Process so that they know what they're looking at. And then finally, I think I'd like a little bit more colorful design, so something more like this, where it shows different colors for each step. Now that I think I've got it good, I'm going to save it in my Excel folder as Payroll Process Student, and then I'm finished with lesson 6 and ready to move on.